Hi students, welcome to our next session looking at Sikhism. Today we're looking at the Sikh Theology of God, and the big idea that we're going to see is this. The Sikh conception of God is a form of mystic monotheism, where the oneness of God is expressed throughout all of reality. So essentially what we're looking at today is the theology of God, often called theology proper, in the Sikh religion. And we're going to be thinking about why theology of God, or why theology proper, is so important to any worldview. So what we're going to do throughout this lesson is we're going to look at the Sikh theology of God, and then we're going to talk about why theology of God is so important to a worldview. So turning now to our notes, we're going to work through our notes here, looking at some of the key information regarding Sikhism and their theology of God. So we begin with this. The 12 words at the beginning of the Guru Granth Sahib are most widely known by Sikhs. With the brevity of a text message, they sum up Guru Nanak's essential teaching. They also pose an immediate challenge to the translator. The 12 words are nouns and adjectives. They include no verbs or pronouns. To compound the challenge, the nouns have no exact counterpart in European languages. And the Gurmukhi script, in which the scriptures are written, does not have an upper-lowercase distinction. As a result, the opening affirmation, Ik Onkar, can be rendered as there is one God, as one reality is, and this being is one. And capitalizing God, reality, or being affects the outcome in English. Is Guru Nanak making a monistic statement that everything is one, and so appearances to the contrary of, for example, God and creation being distinct are illusory? Or is he voicing the monotheistic conviction that God is one and distinct? From the rest of this introduction to the Guru Granth Sahib, and from Guru Nanak's subsequent compositions, it is a monotheistic rather than a monist view of God which emerges. So one of the things to recognize here is that as we look at the theology of God in the Sikh religion, this statement that we've introduced already, Ik Onkar, there is one God, can also be translated a number of different ways, which raise questions about how we understand the theology of God in the Sikh religion. So we're going to work through some of those challenges, and then we'll make some comments about why we think that the Sikh religion has a monotheistic view of God. But one thing we should say here at the outset, the monotheistic view of God in the Sikh religion is quite different to the monotheistic view of God in the Christian religion. So let's keep moving through our notes here. But English renderings tend misleadingly to reinforce a Semitic understanding of monotheism, rather than Guru Nanak's mystical awareness of the one that is expressed through the many. This is a really important sentence to get. English renderings tend to misleadingly reinforce a Semitic understanding of monotheism, rather than Guru Nanak's mystical awareness of the one that is expressed through the many. So when it talks about a Semitic understanding of monotheism, this is talking about Christianity and Judaism and even Islam would be Semitic religions. So this is talking about like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. This is saying these religions have a view of monotheism that is described as Semitic, which is very different to the mystical awareness of monotheism that Guru Nanak has. We'll talk more about that as we move through here, but it's important to notice that when we say that Sikhism is a monotheistic religion, we need to understand that the concept of monotheism is different to the concept of monotheism in these three major religions. Now, a lot of the other religions we've looked at piggyback off Christianity, so they would also fall into this category. Religions like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses, Roman Catholics have the same view. So, just helpful to keep that in mind. However, what is not in doubt is the emphasis on one. In the original ik, one is written not as a word, but as a numeral, so emphasizing the singularity, uniqueness, and indivisibility of Onkar. Similarly, Onkar is represented as an alphabetic character, one nasalized vowel. The Guru's Hindu hearers already connected with the divine through Onkar's Sanskrit counterpart, Om. So, the Sanskrit counterpart for Onkar is Om, and this encapsulation of the universe's vibration in a single resonant syllable. Some of you will have seen the cliche of the person meditating, repeating over and over again the vowel Om, Om, Om. The idea is that this is a meditation word for God's name. You say it again and again as you connect with God. This is the related word for Sikhs in the Punjabi language. So what we have here is, this is what it looks like. Ik Onkar, this is the ik part, and this is the Onkar part. Sometimes it's spelled differently in English. Sometimes there's an A, sometimes there's not. This picture has an A. Ik Onkar, a statement of belief and a logo, consisting of the Punjabi numeral ik, one, and the symbol On or Onkar, often translated as there is one God. So those are the first two words of the Guru Granth Sahib. The remaining 10 words in translation: truth by name, the creator without fear, without hate, timeless in form beyond birth, self-existent, known by the grace of the Guru. So many English versions convert this list of qualities into statements, often including a masculine pronoun or possessive adjective. The resultant sentences starting with his name is truth and he is the creator immediately lend to Guru Nanak's words a masculine gender that is absent from the original. Mul Mantra is the name of these 12 words. A mantra or mantra is the Hindu correlating word. A mantra is an empowering formula for repetition. Mul, pronounced to rhyme with the English word pool, means root. It is etymologically akin to mooli or white radish. It is as if the whole of the Guru's teaching and of Sikh spirituality grows from and draws substance from this statement. This is really important. The first 12 words of the Guru Granth Sahib are like the root of Sikh theology. Everything grows out of this, which further emphasizes to us the importance of theology of God in our understanding of worldview. So his longer compositions develop this theme and provide the basis for Sikh theology. So as we come to look at the competing views of God that exist between worldviews, our theology proper is going to be very important. So let's keep working through our notes here as we begin to make some comments summarizing the Sikh view of God and trying to see how it fits into our assessment of worldviews. As we examine the competing views of God put forward by different religions, it is important to see the competing conceptions of God and the way in which our view of God affects our view of the world. Theology proper, or our view of God, is a foundational aspect of any worldview, and our conception of God has significant impact on all other areas of life. Theology proper is most foundational because it will affect our metaphysics, our ontology, and our epistemology. Important words to know that are foundational to worldviews. Metaphysics, you remember? What is the nature of reality? What is the nature of reality? Ontology, what does it mean to be who we are? What are we? And epistemology, how do we know what we know? How can we have knowledge? All of these areas of philosophy, areas that shape every worldview, all of them depend largely on our theology proper, our view of God. What we think about God will affect our metaphysics, our ontology, and our epistemology. Throughout history, theology proper has been the topic of much debate as theologians and philosophers have sought to make sense of the world. One of the ancient questions that our view of God seeks to answer is the question of the one and the many. Essentially, one of the perennial philosophy questions that has been wrestled with for thousands of years is this. This is the problem of the one and the many. Is everything ultimately one, or is everything ultimately many? This is a really important philosophical question that we all have some answer to, whether or not we're able to articulate it or not. Religious traditions in the East have traditionally answered this question differently to religious traditions in the West. Christianity and Judaism start in the Middle East, but have been considered Western in this analysis. So here is the overview of the different ways to answer this question, or essentially the different views of God that we might have. Over here in this first section we have general theism. And Christianity would add monotheism. But the idea here is that God exists outside of the universe. He creates the universe, and he is involved in holding the universe together and sustaining it. Now, a monotheistic view of God will seek to answer the problem of the one and the many by saying that since God exists and since God created everything, he created the many. He created a world distinct from himself, and he holds the world, the universe, together in such a way that we can have many different things in this universe that are distinct from one another, but they're held together by the unity of God. Because God exists distinct from the world, he holds everything together in such a way that we can have categories, we can have meaning, and we don't need to devolve into nihilism. So God exists, he's distinct from the world, but he holds the world together. Deism, we don't need to talk much about this because it's not super relevant to our topic here, but the idea in deism is that God exists, he made the universe, he got it up and running, and then he left the universe alone, and he doesn't get involved in the universe in any way, and he doesn't interfere with the universe. Essentially, it's God started everything up, and now there's a hard wall between God and the universe, and he's not actually involved with the universe in any way. Now, as we begin to look at, actually we're going to jump from this one over to atheism. The next one we're going to consider is atheism. Atheism essentially says there is no God, there is only the universe. And one of the things that we realize is, as we look at atheism, the way that they answer the one and the many problem is they land strongly on the side of the many. everything is separate individual parts, and one of the results of this is that things devolve into a loss of categories, a loss of meaning, and ultimately nihilism. Now, this view here, theism, monotheism, this view here, deism, this view here, atheism, these three views are all views that are quite popular in the West. We see these views quite frequently in life. However, what we don't see a lot of are these views: pantheism and panentheism and panendeism. And the reason why is because these views are more popular in Eastern religions. Theism, deism, and atheism are more popular in Western religions. Pantheism or pandeism and panentheism and panendeism are more popular in Eastern religions. So let's give a brief comment to each of these. Pantheism is the idea that the universe is God, or God is in everything. You see pantheism quite strongly in religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. The idea is that everything is ultimately one. They come down strongly on this side. Everything is one. The idea of becoming one with the universe, becoming one with God. The idea is that everything is connected, and the problem is that because of the illusion of the world, we think things are disconnected. We think that we are separate from other people. We think that we're separate from the world around us. But ultimately, we're all intimately connected in the infinity of the universe and God. And what we need to do is we need to break the illusion that makes us think that things are disconnected. Now, this is a view that is popular in Eastern religions. However, I don't think that this is the view of Sikhism. And I think we've seen that already. The other view is panentheism or panendeism, which seeks to say that there is some kind of separation or distinction between God and the universe. However, God is intimately expressed in the universe. The oneness of God is a part of the universe, and it's a part, and the universe is an expression of the oneness of God. They're intimately connected, and they're intimately weaved into one another. So there is some distinction. However, God and the universe are intimately connected in this view of God. And part of what this is doing is it's maintaining the emphasis on the oneness that comes through quite strongly in Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. But it also maintains some sort of distinction, some sort of separation between God and his creation. So these are the kind of competing views of God that we see. The ones that we're going to focus on. So I would say Sikhism kind of falls into this category in a lot of ways, but it also falls into this category in a lot of ways as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these two categories, theism and panentheism, and we're going to consider how these theological views shape the rest of our worldview. So, continuing our notes here then, we read this. The implications of how we answer this problem affect every area of our lives. At one extreme, if we conclude that ultimately all of existence is merely many, then we lose all meaningful basis for categories, and life fragments into nihilistic meaninglessness. On the other extreme, if we conclude that everything is ultimately one, we can be led into a stoic nihilism, concluding that everything is united in the ultimate oneness of the universe, and transcending the illusion of the many is the highest form of existence. So, essentially, what I'm trying to draw out here is this reality. If we fall into the extreme of the many, then we lose all meaningful basis for categories, and life fragments into nihilistic meaninglessness. Ultimately, falling into the problem of saying everything is many, there's no uniting or unifying principle. This is the conclusion of atheism, and the result of this is nihilism. However, that's not really our focus here. Our focus here is more to look at the other extreme. If we conclude that everything is ultimately one, we can be led into a stoic nihilism, concluding that everything is united in the ultimate oneness of the universe. So, in the other extreme, the extreme that comes from pantheism and panentheism, is that if everything is God, and if God is in everything, then everything is equally a part of God. And therefore we can't despise one thing and favor another thing. This is just being deceived by the illusion of distinction. If everything is part of God, then we can't say that one thing is better than another thing. This is where you see things like yin and yang. The idea here is that all of this is reality, and all of this is necessary. There needs to be balance between yin and yang. The idea is the yang is what's known, the yin is the unknown. So the major distinction that you see is between order and chaos. On one extreme you have order, on the other extreme you have chaos. And chaos and order are represented differently throughout culture and society. When you see things like masculinity as order and chaos as femininity, this isn't a sexist thing. It's not trying to make some sexist statement about women being chaotic. This is just saying that these are the alternatives, day and night, the known, the unknown, authoritarianism on one extreme, decadence on the other, fascism and nihilism. And it's saying all of these are part of the oneness of the universe, the oneness of reality. You need both because all is one. So we shouldn't despise one thing and favor the other. Rather, they balance each other out. And part of what happens is an over-embracing of the oneness of reality leads us to a kind of stoicism that is very similar to nihilism. When I was in university, I met a Buddhist monk who I spoke to, and one of the things that he said is that he's seeking to have no desires whatsoever. He's seeking to have no desire to eat or drink or go anywhere, just no desires whatsoever. This is the highest kind of virtue in these Eastern religions that want to transcend reality. The reason why he thought it was the right thing to do to rid himself of all desires is because to desire something is to be taken into the illusion of reality. It's to make distinctions between one thing over another. It's to choose food over starvation, as though food is better than starvation. For the Stoic Buddhist, why would food be better than starvation? It's all part of the oneness of the universe, is it not? And that was the kind of logic behind his wanting to rid himself of all desires. Conveniently, he had an assistant with him who would give him food at all the right times so that he didn't starve to death. So just in case you were worrying about that. Now, what does all of this have to do with our exploration of Sikhism? Well, one of the things we must do is we must figure out what is the accurate view of God in the universe. Much of this will come back to our foundations of authority. But what is our understanding of God in the universe? Is everything ultimately one? Is God expressed in all of creation? Or is God distinct from creation and upholding creation by his powerful word? This will shape how we view the world and how we view our existence in the world. Going forward, we're going to look at some of the implications of our theology proper. But for now, it's just helpful to have in mind both the Christian view of God and also the Sikh view of God. Just to point out, I'm not saying that this view here is the Sikh view of God. No, there's more Buddhist view of God, but it's representative of the extreme oneness philosophy that's expressed in some Eastern religions. But like I said, I don't think Sikhism falls into this category. It's more of a mystic monotheism that seeks to walk the line between panentheism and monotheism. So finally, some questions for you to consider. Just 3 simple questions there. Which category do you think best summarizes the Christian view of God? Explain your answer. And which category do you think best explains the Sikh view of God? Explain your answer there also. And then finally, explain the problem of the one and the many. Thanks for your time today. Look forward to seeing you in our next lesson. God bless.